Good
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
We're fine.
We're good.
Good. Welcome to KUHS. Guys, thank you for joining us. You are watching the Weekend Boost on KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. I am your host, Paul Lane, and the author of The Caregiver's Handbook, a self-help love story. Those of you who watch the show know that I always boost my associates at CALMA, the Colorado Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors, and they just keep sending us the best people, man. I tell you, we're just so excited, and the guests just keep getting more exciting, more interesting. And today on our show, we have some very exciting guests and that are just doing something that I think it's time that someone does. And Juan and Deb, or Deb and Juan Espinosa, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yes, very good to have you. You guys are just really making changes in the world right now, and tell me a little bit about the Song of Pueblo.
Well, the Song of Pueblo, we started that in 2008. It's an oratorio, and oratorios are Italian in origin. And it started in the church, actually. It's really storytelling and music with some musicians, not a lot of settings or backdrops, except that we do add video and photography in the back. We have a wonderful, highly talented band of musicians. And so we are telling the stories. These are true stories of Pueblo's history in southeastern Colorado.
Very cool.
So music and visuals.
Now, the Song of Pueblo, we had talked on the phone, and you had mentioned that not only is Pueblo very diverse, but it's a very complex community because there's such a variety of different people going in the city, and always has been. When you were developing this program, tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you guys faced, because I'm sure you guys had to have some adversity in that. Or was it pretty easy for you?
Well, I produced Song of Pueblo as an employee of History Colorado, and I was the director for El Pueblo History Museum for over 2 decades, and had done a number of exhibits, knew the regional history, of course, and exhibits are wonderful. But I saw an oratorio in Denver at Su Teatro, and it was done by Tony Garcia and Daniel Valdez, who we were very lucky to commission for our oratorio. They did the West Side Oratorio, and it's a wonderful documentation of emotions and history, with the West Side, Denver being moved for the Aurora campus, and it was very moving. And I thought, well, Pueblo needed something like that. At the time, I was on the Preservation Commission, and it's very difficult to teach people history publicly. They come to the museum, but in this case, we wanted to take our stories to people, and we have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So we started in the 1700s, and we move forward through time. And Song of Pueblo is also an anthology of music.
Very cool.
So we start with, very earliest music that was, played in the colonials, Santa Fe, Taos, and then as people came north, then we have the beginnings of Pueblo.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. The Songs of Pueblo has been around for some time now, hasn't it, or is it pretty new?
2008.
So it's been.
Of course, COVID interrupted everything, but we picked up last year with just to sort of get up to speed with things.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 new musicians, and they're very outstanding. So it took a while. We did, I think, just 2 shows last year. And that, again, was to get up to speed. And now we're doing them again. And we're getting ready now for a very special presentation at Memorial Hall here. It's a historic Pueblo Memorial Hall. And we will be accompanied by the Colorado University Chamber Orchestra.
Wow,
so,
wow.
Yes, and so Daniel Valdez wrote 15 original songs about all the sagas and drama that has taken place in this area. I always tell audiences that I believe that Pueblo is the most historic town in Colorado, and I'll add that we are a significant town in the development of the West. So when you look at the borderlands, this was first Indian nations, several Indian nations claimed and lived on this land, and then we had the French coming in very early as trappers and traders, and then the Spanish, they traded the land back and forth, and then ultimately Jefferson bought the Louisiana territory. So the river that runs through Pueblo is the international border that separated countries, the United States and Spain, and then later on Mexico, claimed their independence, and they were an independent republic. On the other side, we had U.S. territories, the Louisiana Purchase. So you can cross the river that runs through our downtown and be aware of that history with the river walk and the interpretation of the flags that they have there. But when you dig deeper, you really interpret the frontier borderlands, the northern borderlands of that huge area that belonged to Spain and Mexico. So that alone, it recognizes the first women that came here up from the colonial towns, as I mentioned, Santa Fe and Taos. So they were partners or wives of the first trappers and traders that came from the east, what was then the United States, but this was still just open frontier. And yeah, so I've only touched on our history.
Man.
See, so there's so much to study there and so much to share. I often tell people remind people that the first American women here at the Trading Post happened in the 1840s with the Mexican-American War, and they came with their husbands. They were part of the Mormon battalion. The Mormons were looking for their promised land. There was another southern contingency that came through. The men enlisted in the war because they were able to be outfitted and be paid. And their wives kind of moved along with them in this contingency. Their husbands, those Mormon men, some of them made it all the way to California, but we know that on their trek, then they settled in the Utah territories. So those were the first American women to reach this area in the West.
Wow.
We can go on and on. We're still in the frontier area. But Juan is my helper, and he as a journalist, he was able to bring all of these stories alive with his vast, photo library, his experience as a videographer, etc. And we were very fortunate that all of the historic repositories in Pueblo came forward and assisted us.
Wow.
That was wonderful. And then we also had to raise the money for it. So Juan is a wonderful part of this, and so is Daniel Lopez. So the three of us have collaborated on this project over the years, and certainly in the beginning. We hired him. I first introduced this idea in January, and we premiered the show in November. And in that time, a lot of research had to be done, a lot of materials pulled together, and Daniel was busy writing. He would go home to California and come back, visit historic sites, etc. So I'll let Juan go from here because Daniel had a special request of him. And,
I wonder if your audience appreciation knows enough about Daniel Valdez
Yes.
to value his work.
No, I think that for the most part, the name Daniel Valdez is a fleeting name that, you know, a lot of us have heard over the years, but it's like Lalo Delgado, you know. I mean, we know that he was a very big, important man, but most people, you know, because I think because of laziness, I don't know, but people don't really know a lot about the history, especially the Chicano Latino history. So please, you know, give us a little bit of rundown or background on Daniel Valdez and
it's funny that you say that their names are known, but they're not known. You know, we're to the point where a lot of people do not even remember who Cesar Chavez was.
Yes.
So let's start there. Is that Daniel Valdez and his brother Luis Valdez started at Teatro Campesino, which was part of the United Farm Workers movement led by Cesar Chavez. And they were students. Luis was a student at the University of California, and he went to volunteer for the farm workers, to support the farm workers, and he asked Chavez, well, what did you do? And Chavez said, well, what can you do? He said, I'm a theater student. He said, well, then make theater for the farm workers, and that's exactly what they did. And us old folks will remember that Zunsu, the movie Zunsu was a play in LA for like 7 years, sold out for 7 years. I can't remember how many millions of dollars that they took in at the gate, but they were a very popular play, and then they took it to Broadway, and it played in Broadway a relatively short time. The New York press panned the performance, but they were not discouraged. They took the play and turned it into a movie called Zunsu, and that movie has become a classic, and it plays periodically on different kinds of media. But you know, this last night, PBS had a program with Daniel Valdez and Luis Valdez speaking about the early years with Chavez and the farm workers. So, you know, that's a brand new movie that it's been out about 2 years. It's called Songs of Cesar.
Yes.
Songs for Cesar.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough that we were in contact with the people that made that movie before it was released. And as Deborah just said, that you know, I'm a journalist. I'm a photojournalist, and I have a very good archive of Chicano movement photographs. And I don't remember exactly how many, but I would guess that 15 to 20 of my photographs are in that documentary. So that's, we've had the good fortune of, because we were Chicano journalists, to have met most of the leaders of the Chicano movement from the late 60s to the 70s. So that's a little bit of background on how we got involved. You know, we met Daniel Valdez when we were working with Chavez. We worked with Chavez in the summer of '73. During this, it was the second grape strike. The first grape strike, I think, started in, I think, '68. But in '73, the contract that they had gotten earlier had expired. And so they were in a fight with both the growers and the Teamsters. The Teamsters Union was attempting to pick up and take over the farm worker contracts. And so there was a big strike, and I interviewed Cesar in Denver in the spring of '73, and he says, hey, he says, we're getting ready for a big fight in the fields. He says, I could use a good journalist on the union newspaper, and before the end of the day, he had recruited us to go to La Paz, which is the farm worker union headquarters, and we lived there for that summer, and we worked on the newspaper called Macreado, and covered the strike. So we had a little bit of a relationship with Daniel Valdez. And when we saw the oratorio about the West Side Story, the displacement of the West Side Radio there in Denver, initially I said, well, let's bring that play to Pueblo, but then Denver had the better idea. Let's hire Daniel to write our own play, and as I say, the rest is history.
Wow. So now tell me, how is this being received by the young people? I'm curious, because so many young people today are almost oblivious to, or not curious about that, that important part of who they are. And so I'm just curious how they've received this, the play.
Well, that is a challenge. We have had difficulty in reaching the younger people, and by younger, I mean people in their 30s and 40s, not just the teens or early 20s. They're not familiar with some of this history that we have shared, and it has not been supported in the schools. This, when I'm talking about the territories of Spain and Mexico, that's a mere mention in the first chapter of Colorado history.
Yes, it is.
And it's from the conquistadores, I'm sorry. Conquistadores. I'm trying. I usually just flows, but at the same time, that's a very small part of that region, this region. They just kind of touched Colorado territory before this was even recognized as border territories. So without that Chicano history in the schools, there has been a lot of learning, but it's been so diluted over the years that that's another issue. But generally speaking, young people have instant messaging and social media. They have to be reached in an entirely different way. This is a media that we are sharing through a very old process, very historic process. When I first started learning about the oratorio, I got online, of course, and I couldn't find anything. Now there's a lot of discussion, and a lot of cities are creating oratorios, and they can cover anything at any point in time or subject. So we tend to draw older people who are more comfortable with, the arts in general.
Yes.
The performing arts, the musical arts. And so that's what's been combined here. We have history and the musical arts, and splendid talent, as I've mentioned. The name of our band is the El Pueblo Ensemble, and we have some wonderful musicians. We have our lead singer is Felicia Gallegos. A lot of people know Felicia in Denver for her acting and her career with su teatro. She's performed many times with Daniel on the stage. She's our lead singer, and then we have Mireya Arena, also who has a history with su teatro and stage and music. Her harmonies are just beautiful, and that's what she brings. She's our music director.
Mm.
Then we have Avalon Wiggins, who is our percussionist. He was already touring when he was 13 years old.
Wow.
And yes, and he was has performed with so many groups. His story is, everybody's story is interesting, and that's what I love, the stories. And then we have Wayne Wiggins, our newest member, who is a guitarist. He's so well known. He has performed in Europe at the White House with great jazz musicians who describe him as being one of the best guitarists
Wow.
in the country. And he comes to us he lives in Colorado Springs, and he's taught here at our university at Southern Colorado, Colorado State University, Pueblo, excuse me. And then we have Carlos Cruz, who's performed with so many groups, a lot of the groups that we knew in the 70s and 80s. He's probably the most well-known musician in this region.
Man, that's you.
Yeah.
He plays in about half a dozen bands. He plays almost every night of the week someplace.
Wow.
Oh yes, they're all very busy. We have to book them way in advance just to be in San Pueblo. And then we have Michael Beck, Dr. Michael Beck, who was a professor and dean of the music school at the universities. He's joined us as well, so he's the keyboardist, and I don't. And Juan is also part of the show because he shows he moves the stories along with the images, and that's what Daniel wanted from the very beginning. He wanted images with every song. I'll let him share that.
We go back to 2008 when we were producing the show. It was like being on a conveyor belt. As time was passing, the opening date was already set. I would just tell you how crazy it was. Is that the last song written was about Teresita, a pioneer woman who was part of the building of the public trading post in the 1840s.
Wow.
That song was written 3 days before our opening night.
Wow.
And we were producing videos and slides simultaneously with Daniel writing the songs. He was living at our house while we were working on these songs, so we basically were working on it day and night. I was still working full time at Pueblo Chieftain.
Oh, geez.
And, it's just amazing it all came together. But my part of the show is I did all the contemporary photography that is in the show. I helped research the archives between here and Denver to get the best historic pictures for Pueblo history. And we produced, this is like a 90-minute program.
Wow.
A 90-minute show. And it's pretty much a continuous, there's images on the screen for the whole show. It's like making a movie. And so anyway, that was my contribution as a photojournalist. I put together the visuals, and I am also the projector. I project the images during the show live, and I manually synchronize every song with the lyrics as they come on.
Man.
The director of the orchestra from CU, she said, well, then you're a performer as well. And I never thought about it that way, but my running the show, the way we read it, is just like playing another instrument.
You're like the percussion that keeps the beat.
Yes, and timing is of the essence, timing, and he has to synchronize this music with the images, and so that's a very time-consuming, ongoing job because tempos change. We're at venues, etc., etc. But Every song is a masterpiece. Danielle has done such incredible work. We were able to cover the high points in the area's history, and he did it so well. They're very moving. The show is an experience. It's an emotional experience because they not only feel the music and the lyrics, but they can they have the images to also support that. I remember being told by his wife, Armina, that she believed that this was some of his best work.
Wow.
Who could do that better, right?
What an honor.
So proud of it. He's a very gifted man, and he's very, very well liked here, and he likes Buffalo. He loves Colorado. So it was easily settling into the project. What we didn't have in the beginning was a full path. We sort of created as we went along, and it worked in long. So that's why we keep it going.
Very good. I think
I want to add to something you asked about earlier. You asked about how this show appeals to the youth. What we have done for the last 4 years is, in fact, we're doing it next week, is we're performing for District 60, which is the largest school district in Pueblo County, and they focus Colorado history of the 3rd grade.
wow.
So we have an audience of roughly 1,000 3rd graders that see the show all the same day. We perform an abbreviated version of the show 3 times, and we fill the theater at the San Luis Cristo Art Center here in Pueblo. We fill that theater 3 times. So it's amazing, but you know what? These kids are very attentive, and this is their first exposure to the theater, to the live music, to a concert, and to the visuals. And it's amazing to watch them learn how to appreciate that kind of a performance. And they get so excited. And you know, even the little 3rd graders, I swear, you know, I'm at the back of the room projecting this, and every time we perform before a live audience, we've gotten a standing ovation, including with the 3rd graders.
Wow.
These people stand up, and the little guys, they just start clapping and standing, and at the end of the show, and it's really fun to watch.
No doubt.
That sort of answers your question that you had, is are you reaching the younger people? How are you doing that? Well, if I had my way, we would also be showing that to middle school kids and high school kids. But those 3rd graders, I hope, will always grow up with Song of Pueblo, when they get that first experience with live music. Maybe they'll be the future music teachers, performers, you know, or historians.
Historians, yes.
You know, creating their own materials and teaching the public. However it goes, we're having to start with the youngest generation in our community and have them grow up with it.
Yes, I think it's, I guess from my perspective, you know, I really think it's critical that young people, I mean, I think that we all get to a point in our life where we look in the mirror and say, who am I? You know, where did I come from? What is my roots? What are my raíces, you know? And I think that when we can start introducing this to young people, 3rd grade, man, that's so incredible. You know, I mean, middle school kids, I think that when we teach, you know, me as a teacher and then, you know, a speaker, I always teach in stories. You know, everything I do is in a story. I think that when someone hears a story, they remember that history, and when they add music to that, I mean, you're getting that multi-sensory perception aspect, and that just, it doesn't just go in and go out. I think it ingrains itself in them. You know, I guess that's my perspective, but I think it's great that kids are seeing this.
Well, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience for us as well. You know, the arts always have to be supported financially, and we're managing to get more recognition, and that helps tremendously. We have a research project going on here in Pueblo. It's called Soundscapes of the People, and that's a Colorado University project led by Dr. Susan Thomas. And she's been in Pueblo for almost 2 years now. She's researching Pueblo's immigrant story. We haven't even talked about the steel mill and the thousands of people that were recruited to come here and work. Not to mention the strikes, the coalfield wars, Ludlow massacre.
Yes.
And so that she's researching, the older musicians and younger musicians. I'm learning about changing soundscapes, if you will. And through that project, that's how we are able to perform here in about 3 weeks here in Pueblo, as I mentioned, with the orchestra. We'll be doing the same show in Boulder, so we want people to know in Denver and Boulder that they could see the show.
Yes. So I want to definitely make sure we talk about that. If they wanted to see your show in Pueblo, where would they go, and who would they reach out to?
They can reach me, and so I'm going to give my phone number because we have it on a press release is going out, right? So I'm the person to contact if they have questions. 719-369-4108. And of course, they can go to the website, Pueblo Memorial Hall. They'll get more information. We're asking that people get a ticket. The show is completely free. This is a gift to the community. It is free to everyone to come and see the show. And that's the same in Boulder as well. This is a free concert. In Pueblo, however, we're asking people to get a ticket. That's mostly to keep count, to see how things are going. And there's more than one place where they can get tickets at the Pueblo History Museum, the Pueblo Heritage Center, and of course the box office at Memorial Hall. All of those are in our downtown area, close to the Riverwalk.
Now, if somebody wanted to donate to your cause, where can they find you and where can they donate? Because guys, this is a cause worth donating to, and this is worth putting your 2 cents plus in there, guys. So please tell us where they can reach out and donate funds to your cause.
We are building our website right now, changing it and so forth. They can get a hold of me, 719-369-4108 for more information, and if they want to be a donor, that's certainly very welcome as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people who want to attend the show in Pueblo, they need to know that it's on the 21st, which is a Saturday, and it's a matinee performance. It's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's at Memorial Hall, which is attached to our city hall, right in the middle of downtown Pueblo. So if you're coming from out of town, just come into the heart of Pueblo downtown, look for City Hall. It's a pretty distinguished building, and the Memorial Hall is attached to it. And, we're encouraging people to get advance tickets. The hall itself has a capacity of about 1,600. We don't know that we would fill it, but in the event that we do, people that have tickets in advance, of course, will be in, and there may have to be some people turned away at the last minute for the walk-ups. But anyway, the point I wanted to make, most important, that it's an afternoon performance. There's not an evening performance. The performance in Boulder on the 26th
Yes.
is an evening performance.
Okay.
I believe that starts at 7 o'clock.
Now, where is that in Boulder? Do you know?
Yes, it's in the Grusin Hall on campus.
On campus, okay.
Yes, I'm not sure at this point what building that's in, but Grusin Hall.
You guys, did you hear that? That is so exciting. If you're from Denver, you don't have to drive all the way down to Pueblo. But set aside the 26th of October, guys. This is important. This is something that you really need to experience yourself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dan. But I think it's really important that we get this out, because I think it's, our history is important to all of us.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that live in Denver that originated from Pueblo, and this is an opportunity for them to see something really great about their hometown.
Yes.
Without coming down here. But you know what? I want to say something about Pueblo. We're so proud of Pueblo. People always ask, in Pueblo we have big high school rivalries. And the first thing they ask you is, what high school did you go to? Well, we always went to high school here. We came to Pueblo on purpose because we recognize the significance of this town, both historically, culturally, and all of that. But I want to tell you, Pueblo is a living history lesson. That was mentioned earlier. The river that runs through here was the international border between Mexico and the United States. Mm-hmm. And there's been so many different things that have happened here. When you cross that river today on Union Avenue Bridge, there are 5 national flags representing the countries that at one time or another claimed the north or south side of that river.
Wow.
And it's Spain, it's France, it's the Republic of Texas, it's the United States.
And Colorado.
And Colorado.
Wow. Is that on I-25 there? Do you see that, or?
I'm sorry?
Is that on I-25 where you see the flags?
Oh, no, it's right downtown.
Oh, man.
There's a bridges over the river, and when you're on the other side, you're in historic South Pueblo, Union Avenue, and that territory, those were Mexican land grants.
Wow.
That part of Pueblo is the Nolan land grant, and then CF&I still was part of that, and they were so big, CF&I, that they're also part of the Big Hill St. Vrain land grant, which was something like 4 million acres.
Wow.
So, yes, and Nolan is probably one of the smaller grants. But that's the kind of history we have here. Mm-hmm. We have the architecture of early Pueblo still in place. Mm-hmm. And we could let me tell you about our Western cowboy history. We know that in Mexico, that's where it originated, the stock raising, that culture, that beautiful culture of the rodeos and the raising of so many beautiful breeds. Yes, the charros. Mm-hmm. And then the Texas territory, that area developed into the American cowboy, but everything is based on that history.
Wow.
Goodnight and Loving brought the cattle out here to Pueblo. Charles Goodnight's bar is here, can still be visited, and it's in development for a little larger historical center to visit. But if anyone's read the book Lonesome Dove, they'll know about Charlie Goodnight. He lived here, and and that cowboy legacy. When you watch the Western movies, that was what took place here. Mm-hmm. In other parts of the West, there were different kinds of cowboy experiences. Mm-hmm. So we lay claim to that with Texas.
They were shipping cattle out of Pueblo to the mining towns as far north as Wyoming. There was a lot of mining towns just right around Pueblo. Mm-hmm. We had Cripple Creek and West Cliff, Silver Cliff. Those are all mining towns, and the cattle drives were the real thing. Pueblo, Colorado is a destination.
Wow.
A lot of people don't appreciate the railroads that Pueblo has a history of. I've been told that as many as 70 passenger trains pass through Pueblo in a given time, in a week or so.
That was daily. There were about more like 50 trains a day came in and departed from Pueblo. And then that busy downtown area that we're talking about was destroyed by the 1921 flood.
Yes.
Hundreds of people were killed. When we see these tragedies on television more frequently, unfortunately, you can visualize what happened in Pueblo. The levee broke.
Wow.
And it rushed. It had rained for 3 days, and a levee broke. And there were telephone operators. By this time, it's the 20s, 1921, and we have more of a modern town. There were streetcars and offices, businesses. Everything was established, and we were one of the leading economic centers of Colorado.
Wow.
So that was all destroyed very quickly. So there's a song for that.
That's so cool.
Everything we have mentioned, there is a song that describes that, and that includes Sand Creek Massacre.
Oh, cool.
And the Massacre.
Yes, because I know William Bent was around Pueblo too at that earlier, in the history. The Bent brothers, right before the Sand Creek Massacre, William Bent and his brothers were half native, and I think there's somewhere around Pueblo you'll see a sign that goes to Bent Fort, and so the Sand Creek Massacre, that's so important, I think.
Right. Native American women, and when you mentioned that, I think the tragedies, but the women were Native women and Mexican, Spanish colonial women had far more rights, political rights, and than the women who arrived later, as the white pioneers coming westward with the expansion of the United States. They couldn't own land. Their oldest son inherited everything. They had no say politically, but the women in New Spain and Mexico, they had rights. They could take their husbands to court if they needed to, and there's evidence of that. They could own property. There's evidence of that.
Really?
They could even trade. There's evidence of that, especially the Native American women, but also the borderlands women would trade things. And these women built bridges between the cultures. Trade brings people together.
Yes.
It enhances more of maybe a fragile peace, but peace nevertheless. And they brought their extended families and the language and the culture, even though they were married to the trappers and traders, and some of them being European. That whole story is remarkable as well.
Man, that's too cool, man.
Something I want to mention, I know this program frequently focuses on writers, and we've talked a lot about Daniel Valdez and the lyrics of his songs, which are wonderful. I mean, they're wonderful. But what ties all this together, and Deborah's being a little modest, are her narrations. She takes and writes the time periods between the songs to connect one song to the other, but it creates a continuous story of Pueblo's development. And her narrative is extremely well written as well, and it carries the show. The audience feels a natural progression, a natural continuation of the story and how it developed. And the thing I hear adults say when they've seen the show is, "I've learned so much."
That's important.
History in watching the show, and for many of us, history was a painful place to be, a history class, and we kind of dread the idea that we're going to go learn some history. And this is not a pitch to say come and learn some history, but you'd be amazed how much history there is to be learned in just a 90-minute presentation.
Dang, I'm excited. That sounds good. You know, I got to tell you, since I've been doing the show for 4 years, and I've been so fortunate to have had so many authors and historians come onto the show and talk about, so many of the things that you're talking about and how relevant they are to me, to our culture today. I mean, we don't remember that, we don't know that, but it happened and it does impact us. And to this day, we're still a part of that history.
When I was a child, I remember being in about the 3rd or 4th grade, and I never heard anything about Spain or Mexico. Our own family didn't know much, and I really had the sense, the false sense that we were not contributors, and that in history class, the only thing I ever heard of was the Mexican-American War. And then on top of that, we lost the war. Mm-hmm. So people wonder why we have an inferiority complex. And we are a very complicated community. We are a complex race of people. We are mestizos, mexicas, and we are the workers. And we still tie this land together.
Thank you.
Our farm workers, our first, we all know that now, and we're seeing a revolution take place in our country. The middle class is revolting as a result of COVID and years of not being paid livable wages.
Yes.
Well, that's what Ludlow was about.
Yes, it was.
Safety, they needed respect. They needed to
equality.
Buy clothes for their kids.
Yes.
And eventually that took place. Ludlow had national impact. When we think of the Industrial Revolution in the East, that took place here in the West.
And yet so many people never heard of Ludlow in Colorado. It's a shame. It's really a real disgrace that we haven't shared that with our friends and family.
Well, not adequately, but to visit the Ludlow site and learn so much. Mm-hmm. But Steve and I was once told by John Rockefeller.
Yes, right.
That's the man, the richest man in the world. The idea of the philosophy was that all their wealth depended upon the work and the backs of thousands of people. And that's why so many immigrants are here today. And there's, it's still taking place. History repeats itself.
Talking about that inferiority complex, I call it the internalization of inferior status. When we're, a lot of times when we're growing up and, we may have a teacher who doesn't really feel like we have intelligence or that we are a credible force. And so they minimize us many times, or they put us in the back of the class, or they never call on us. And so, like I told you about in my blog, my mom, if she spoke Spanish, I now know you've heard this before, in la boca. So there's no Spanish spoken in the school, and when she got home, it was like, I'm afraid to speak here too, So we internalize that, and we pass it down to our children so many times, and I think it's a time for awakening. I think it's a time for us to alert the people that this is who you are, man. Mira la sierra, la sangre,
Right. Everything you say is true. History. And the knowledge of one's history is empowering. Mm-hmm. That's why it's not in the schools. That's why there's a backlash to it now in certain states that are banning books, banning history, and banning words.
They're banning the term Latinx.
Yes. And so we're very, very fortunate that we rode that wave into the universities, thanks to leaders like Cesar Chavez, Jorge Gonzalez. And yes, we have our own beautiful history here, and all of the American Southwest today that is we recognize is we were taught that was Aztlán. That was the origin of the early tribes that were into Mexico, and so there's so much history, and it's all beautiful. So the mingling of all of the people who came from Europe, we have the Italian, we have the song Elm Street, we have Bojan Town, the Slovenian, Croatian entry here, the arrival of all of their contributions are evident here. Our agriculture, again, our architecture, various foods that we have here. Pueblo's a foodie town. It's people think they know Pueblo, but they don't.
Did you hear that, guys? You think you know Pueblo,
but you don't. There are some derogatory things said about Pueblo, that we have a lot of crime here. That's a national problem. But in Colorado, it's as if people need a place to blame. And I have said this in front of audiences, that Pueblo is a place, it's a town that people love to hate. And there is a difference. There's a cultural border here. That Mexican, Spanish, U.S. border separates culture, and the border will be across, right? So as soon as you cross the border, you cross that river, you start you start hearing place names like La Junta, Aguilar, Trinidad, yes, Pueblo,
Cuesta, yeah, so many. Antonito,
our mountains, Sangre de Cristo. So that's that cultural border there too as well. So people on the north side of the border, where all of the development is, most of the state's money is there. Southeastern Colorado is home to the beautiful Santa Cruz Valley, that beautiful history, where they're still struggling with land rights that were given to the people through the Treaty of Guadalupe.
Yes. Oh man, I wish we could spend a whole hour just talking about the Treaty of Guadalupe and how it's affected.
Well, there's some real heroes and men and women, a lot of women who are leading that fight to retain rights to the land. And that was granted to us, granted to the people, the heirs there.
I really appreciate your sharing about the women and their role and how critical it was, and how it's not just a supportive role, it's the backbone. I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist, and I speak up against men's jacked up egos all the time. And I'm just so grateful that we have strong women. I mean, weak men are afraid of strong women, and I just love strong women. I think it's exciting to see women taking roles of leadership, and I'm excited that I'm really excited about your show. And guys, we're about out of time. This has been a fast hour. I want to make sure. Yes, please.
On a light note, let me just say, conquistadores.
Conquistadores.
I learned a lesson. Never go on a show, a podcast, or anything without a glass of water. Thank you so much for inviting us today.
Yes. Guys, we have been, please, what? Did you have something?
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Yes. Guys, we have been talking to Deb and Juan Espinosa, the creators of the Song of Pueblo. You can reach out to Deb at 719-369-4108. If you would like to get tickets to the show, if you would like to donate, please reach out. This is a worthy cause. It's a good place for your money. The Songs of Pueblo will be will be in Boulder on the 26th of October on the CU campus. Please find out how you can get your tickets. Go to this, find out about your history, the Pueblo history, Colorado history, and it will stick in your heart. I guarantee you guys. You've been watching the Weekend Boost on KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so humbled and grateful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be talking soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. See you next time.